How do you quantify what the worst boss is? Well, not via a tier list. I'm already doing one of those, and considering how long it's turning out to be, hopefully I'll never have to do one again. Metroid is a series known for a lot of things, but having really good boss fights is not exactly one of them. It's kinda like classic Mario in that way, where the guys you are fighting, like Kraid and Ridley and Crocomire, are all cool and iconic, but in terms of mechanical depth or challenge, they leave something to be desired. That being said, I love boss fights. Yeah, getting a new item is always going to make you feel like you're progressing, but nothing feels bigger than fighting a boss fight. They, in a way, are why you're exploring and collecting items, even in a non-Metroid search action game. Hell, I stake my claim that Super Metroid has the best final boss fight in the entire medium of video games, and it doesn't even require pretty much any item in the game. There isn't a single dodge roll or parry mechanic to be found in Super Metroid. That, however, is a topic for a different day, my friends. Sometimes, though, when you're playing one of these games, there is just a boss that really sucks balls. It's a huge buzzkill, or it's just pathetically lame, so you forget that it exists every time you play it. I want to talk about that because it'd be way, way harder to convince anyone what the best fight is on an objective level. It's Raven Big from Metroid Dread, by the way. So I want to take a walk down a road that I don't often see myself going down, being critical of Metroid. The original Metroid comes to mind when a lot of people think of shitty bosses, because a lot of people wrongly assume that it's a bad game. Incorrect. It is actually a very good game. Now, I wouldn't say that Ridley and Kraid are shining stars of boss design, but context matters. This was 1986, so Mega Man 3 didn't invent good boss fights yet. But I do truly think that if you asked me what my favorite boss in an 8-bit game was, I'd unironically say Mother Brain. It's such a chaotic nightmare, and it's really cool that its environment is what's trying to kill you while the boss is completely passive. I think this element specifically is a bit tarnished in the otherwise excellent Zero mission, where she does in fact shoot at you herself with a big Hadoken every so often. So yeah, wait a minute, shit. That was just me talking about a good boss fight. Metroid 2 might be a good candidate. There's really only the Metroids as boss fights. No, I do not count this random spring ball guy that I forget exists every time I play the game. And there's 5 different variations of the Metroids, plus the larva. Out of all of these, Gamma Metroids are the most obnoxious, and boy fucking howdy did they take that to the next level in Samus Returns. You want to talk about parts in a game that make you go, oh god, I had to play this again? It's the section of the game where you have to fight like 6 of these goddamn things, and they keep running from you right when you're about to kill them. Pure hatred. But are these things really the worst? It's kind of hard to think of it that way, since if you are skilled enough, you can just take care of them quickly before they escape. Plus, what is wrong with a little bit more exploration, going to seek them out after they run away? Part of me really respects a boss that utilizes an interesting terrain and isn't limited to just one boss arena. So Super Metroid has a lot of random guys that just come and go, Spore Spawn, Crocomire, Botwoon, but even those guys I think are totally fine. I mean, the main bosses aren't exactly a challenge to me who has played this game 10,000 times, but I remember having trouble with Phantoon and Ridley as a kid. No, if we're gonna talk about bad bosses, we gotta get down to brass tacks. We gotta stop fucking around. We gotta talk about the ultimate king of having boss fights that people despise, Metroid Prime 2. Yep. That's right, dear viewers. This is another video that was secretly a front to prove to everyone that they are wrong about Metroid Prime 2. Okay, not really, but I do want to talk about the panoply of hard or annoying bosses in Prime 2 and maybe try to change your perspective on some of them. You all know him. He ruined the lives of many 9-year-olds on the holidays of 2004. It's the Boost Guardian. To a certain demographic of people living on this planet, this hallway and Morphball Tunnel is exactly like the scene in Mulholland Drive where the guy talks about his reoccurring dream of walking towards a dumpster before a scary figure jumps out. I do totally understand what this guy's issues are. He does way too much damage at a point in the game where you really haven't spent much time outside of the light bubbles in the Dark World. This combined with a very inconsistent pattern and a lot of RNG on hoping to God that you get yellow health drops from the pillars that he destroys leads to a very tense battle. Even for a godlike Metroid deity like myself, who has less trouble with him nowadays, I still find myself sweating from time to time fighting this guy. Torvus in general is a huge difficulty spike. Even the normal enemies are more aggressive and annoying. And lo and behold, my pick for actual worst boss in Prime 2 would be the Alpha Blog. Not confident in saying it's the worst ever, but supremely annoying to deal with and worse to lose against, since you gotta do a bunch of bullshit every time you want to fight it, since it temporarily locks you out of the nearest save room. The fight itself is fairly simple, it's just weirdly finicky to actually deal damage to the Alpha Blog without taking damage in return, especially if you want to be quick and use the Dark Beam. I'd say above even those two in terms of universal hatred that people have towards bosses is the Spider Guardian. Yet again, a boss you have to fight after a long section without saving, and it's this weird multi-phase gimmick fight in the Morph Ball. Here's my thing though. I think it's fun. Yeah, all the parts of it are kind of janky and weird, and especially on the GameCube, it's so precise in a way that no other fight has been or ever will be, but come on, a whole fight in Morph Ball? That's cool. I get there are way too many steps to hurt this little bastard, but I enjoy how involved it is in a series where a lot of fights can just evolve into shoot this guy with missiles for 2 minutes straight. Actually, there are 2 other fights right after this that heavily use the Spider Ball, but I don't really hear many people be angry about those fights. I'd say the Powerbomb Guardian is more annoying purely because of the RNG fuckfest nature of its fight. It's not super hard, just kinda tedious to do. Moving on from Prime 2 though, Hunters is another nest of trash. You have the major boss fights, which aren't that bad, but you have to fight 2 of them 4 times with very slight differences and the worst controls humankind has devised yet. But there's also the other Hunters in Metroid Prime Hunters. Okay, there's no getting around how bad these fights are, but there totally is a sort of so bad it's good glee in doing what is essentially a bot match in Quake a few times every level against a weird cartoon action figure guy with no personality. Prime 4, if you're listening, please bring back the rest of these freaks. I'd say Other M has my personal claim to the biggest concentration of bad bosses. The problem is, the spectacle is cool enough to sort of save them. Combat in general is pretty mixed for me in Other M because it's 100% style over substance. There really is no skill in a game with auto-dodging, but then again, I do find myself dying all the time to the bosses or the 100 stupid mini-boss encounters they force you to do every 2 rooms because I get so goddamn bored of holding the charge button and letting go and repressing it and occasionally pointing the remote at the screen to awkwardly fire missiles in the worst game design choice of all time. In my recent playthrough, I had to stop during the final boss because it was just not working for me. I simply could not do it, and it's a game I have beaten multiple times as a teen. I can't say on either an objective or subjective level that these are the worst boss fights though. Plenty of people really like this game's combat, and hey, Nightmare is cool, Fantoon is cool, Ridley is super fucking cool. There are great fights in here, despite me not liking the combat-focused gameplay loop and how mind-numbing it all becomes by the end. So I think I've realized that despite there being plenty of things to criticize for unfair difficulty or bad design, I can't bring myself to call out any specific fight as the worst. Even a pathetically, pointlessly easy one like Drogaiga from Metroid Dread is actually secretly a great boss if you played in Dread mode. Same with plenty of easy fights in Zero Mission. The final boss of that game on hard mode 100% is one of the hardest challenges in a video game that I've ever played. Though mostly because these fucking black Zabezians right at the end of the escape. So yeah, Metroid has its ups and downs in terms of bosses, and I'd even argue it took up until Dread for the bosses to become the best element of the whole game, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to find what's secretly bad about the series that we love to feel like we're being more legitimate and fair. Maybe we are just allowed to take the good with the bad and enjoy it without grandstanding and making a video essay to prove a point that nobody was asking. It's all just transient and fleeting emotions of anger based on recent experiences. There's a lot of nuance missing in that, and you can't pretend that there's a logical system to it. Besides, who actually thought there would be an objectively worse aw fuck, it's the Metroid Hatcher, isn't it? Fuck this thing. Oh my god.